This Saturday, you have two teams going in complete opposite directions. You have West Virginia coming off a heartbreaking last-second Hail Mary loss to Houston, and you have Oklahoma State coming off back-to-back Big 12 wins, including a win over a top 25 team, and that's the Kansas Jayhawks. Well, I'm going to bring on a guest, and we're going to preview this Saturday's game between West Virginia and Oklahoma State, and we're going to do it right after this word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college sports fans, Big 12 fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome in to another edition of Couz's Corner. Belly yourself up to the bar, grab a corner booth, whatever makes you feel comfortable, and let me pour you out this shot of top-shelf college football content. To help me tend to your needs today is the one and only Cody Stovall from Locked On Oklahoma State. Cody, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well, brother, man. Doing actually doing much better than last time we had this conversation when the roles were somewhat in reverse. And so I don't envy the position, but at the same time, we were just there. So the ups and downs of the wild, wacky, crazy college football landscape, it ain't gonna get any better, buddy.
No, sir.
In this transfer market NIL era, I have a feeling that being an underdog anymore is not going to mean much.
No, sir. And you were talking about how things were reversed the last time we spoke. Man, isn't that college football though?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we love about it and hate about it at the same time, right?
Yeah. It's good while the getting's good, and it hurts extra heavy when it's not.
That's right, man. Well, real quick before we get into the meat of the show, can you just let everybody know? I kind of have it on the screen, but for those who are listening and not watching, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Absolutely, yeah. I have a daily show, obviously Locked On Oklahoma State, that's available on all podcasting platforms. Obviously, it's on YouTube as well. On Twitter, I like to have some fun at All Day O State. It's the same as far as Instagram and Facebook go as well. It's O State all day.
I hear you. And I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. I always enjoy chatting with you and talking college football. And this week, we're talking about an actual game between our teams, man.
Yes.
You guys, what a turnaround you've had so far in the last 2 weeks. I mean, you went from losing to South Alabama 33-7. Everybody thought Mike Gundy might be on the hot seat. To now you've won 2 games in a row, including a top 25 win over Kansas. Can you just describe the mood change there and what things are like there in Stillwater and among the fan base?
Well, man, like, we've discussed previously, we just got too cute, man. The offense that we ran this spring, this fall, it's not the offense that we rolled out the first few weeks of the season. You probably could have got away, if you're Mike Gundy, you could have got away with the rotation of madness. I think if all 3 quarterbacks would have had the same offense, but he tried to get too cute with it, man. And part of that is just being so distracted that you're kind of are cut off from the pulse of the team and the seriousness of some of the issues. And, man, he's been the coach that's actually been X's and O's drawing up the special teams. He's been in the building later. He's been, going in earlier, and the players can see it. So it's not just right. Hey, we're going to do this thing together. Mike Gundy's legitimately drawing up the scripting offensively, and he's in the office till late at night, which he admit out of his own mouth he hasn't really done for the last 8 to 10 years. So, man, it just my frustration still remains because this was the same crap that was happening last season. And he not only ignored it, but he refused to acknowledge that there was ever even any problems. And so I'm still irritated that it took to now, right? It took this point, losing to South Alabama, then losing to Iowa State before you had your come to Jesus meeting. In my opinion, that come to Jesus meeting should have happened last year. But nonetheless, we are playing good. The buy-in from the players-only meetings in the locker room is growing, and now that they're seeing Gundy there every single day and actually working till late at night, I do think that it's starting to finally galvanize this unit.
Awesome. That's good to hear because I mean, not necessarily good to hear for me as a West Virginia fan, but good to hear for the Oklahoma State fan base. And look, I cheer for Oklahoma State when they're not playing us. Honestly, I've always liked and respected Mike Gundy. Now, the last couple of years, he has said and done a few things that get under my skin, so I don't like him quite as much as I used to. But I do still have a lot of respect for him and the success he's had as a coach. I mean, he's how many consecutive winning seasons has he had now?
17.
Yeah, 17. So, I mean, there's not a lot of coaches that can say that in this country. You know, so for whatever people want to talk about him being a mediocre coach or whatever, I don't see the 17 winning seasons as mediocrity, especially, you know, Oklahoma State and West Virginia are similar in a lot of ways. Neither of us are blue blood programs. You know, we're in rural areas where it's harder to recruit. You know, when we're having to compete against schools that are in bigger cities and you know, hard to recruit against. You know, we have similar challenges, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
So I always have respect for a coach that can have that kind of success at a program like Oklahoma State. I mean, we haven't had that kind of consistency here really since. Well, we've never had that many winning seasons in a row, but that kind of consistency since, I guess you could say, Don Nehlen, which was, I mean, heck, he's been gone over 20 years now. So it's just crazy, you know, the people will dog on Mike Gundy as a coach. As far as his overall career, any of that goes, you know, I understand recently that there's been some head scratchers.
I think it's just, at least from my perspective, and some of the, you know, the general consensus that I get is everybody's happy with the number of wins.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that whenever you are responsible for, you know, a ceiling of a university, you know, constantly getting bigger, you have to meet that ceiling. If you set the ceiling, you got to meet the ceiling. And I think a lot of people have wondered at times, have we reached our ceiling? Because one Big 12 title in 18 years is not, or 19 years really, is not that much to write home against. And the Bedlam record being 3-15 is obviously a major source of a contention as well.
Right.
So it's never been a body of work, right? With Gundy, the amount of games that he wins, phenomenal. It's why he's, you know, one of the top coaches in the game right now. It's the lack of winning the big ones, right? The ones that get you to the title game or win you the title game that I think seems to be the biggest frustration.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And that's fair. Let's dive into the game now, man. I've been trying to look over. I've seen a little some Oklahoma State football. I watched their game against Kansas this past weekend, or at least part of it. I didn't watch the whole game.
Right.
And I've been digging through some numbers, and it appears to me as an outsider that the weak point of this team, to me, especially on the defensive side, would be the pass defense. Is that an accurate assessment, or are the numbers lying to me there?
No, I think that is accurate. I think it is accurate. I think we do still have the propensity to overrun some things, right? Which you'd rather your guys be ultra aggressive and you have to, you know, reel them back in as opposed to push. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that you have guys flying sometimes to the wrong area. And then let's just be frank, right? I don't know anybody, let alone the Big 12, but there's not very many in the country that run as many innovative, creative shifts and motions and everything that KU does. So yes, they took advantage of some of our, you know, overabundance to try to fill voids immediately. They caught us in some bad areas. So yeah, I would say that was deficiency. But here's the irony, man. The first few games, it was the opposite. We couldn't. Okay. We were giving up 4.7, 4.9 yards a carry.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at on the offensive side, obviously Ollie Gordon is the key, right? He's coming off a game where he had over 100 yards receiving, over 100 yards rushing for the first time since I think 1989. Is that accurate?
Yep.
So he's definitely going to be the focal point, I would imagine, of the defensive game plan.
Yeah.
For our defensive coordinator, Jordan Leslie, and as he should be.
Correct. He is that good.
Yeah, right. He is that good. Who are some other guys on the offensive side of the ball that West Virginia fans may not be familiar with that they should look out for this Saturday?
Well, Rashad Owens, he's a fifth-year wide receiver, been in the game for quite some time, right? He's kind of one of those disciples of Dunn, even when, Dunn still had that name, the recognition as one of the wide receiver gurus. He's kind of had to bide his time, not necessarily being the most sure-handed, not necessarily being the fastest, and he's played every single position at wide receiver, as well as playing tight end last year as well for most of the season. So he's literally that Swiss Army knife that had his coming out party, I guess you could say, the other day against KU. Without having DeJon Stribling, he's huge. Brennan Presley, right, been around for a few years. He's been a name that I know everybody's going to be pretty aware of. I think on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, he is.
It feels like he's been there for 20 years.
Yeah,
he's the Perry Ellis of Oklahoma State football.
There you go. And KU game, we found some very arena ball-esque, intricate ways to get him more involved, which is going to give West Virginia more eye candy, right? It's more stuff that you have to look at now. And with the reverse has scored for a touchdown, and then when he's kept it, and we ran his own blocking scheme, that worked very well. But a name that I think most West Virginia fans should maybe note would be our tight end, Josiah Johnson. He's somebody we target early in games, but we never really go back to the well in the second half with him, and we completely abandon him in the red zone. Our red zone offense has not been great. If we cannot get that kicked up a notch, I would expect maybe some Gunnar Gundy red zone packages for West Virginia as well.
Interesting. But what does Gunnar Gundy bring to the table that Alan Bowman does not?
He can run a decent amount, right? Okay. He's not a breaking speed down the field for 90 yards guy by any stretch of the imagination. But when he came to Oklahoma State, he was running like a 5-flat 40. And in his time, they've been able to time him the beginning of this spring at 4.59.
Wow.
Yeah. So
he and Garrett Greene are about similar speed.
So yeah, he's not gonna blaze you, but his strong suit this year that he has played in the games has been his legs, 100% for sure.
That's blazing for a quarterback.
And he's a gamer, man.
Yeah.
He has no problem, alone in the shoulder.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize he had that kind of speed. Which, like I said, again, that's good speed for a quarterback.
Yeah.
When you look at Alan Bowman, who's going to be the starter, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Has been the last, 3 games, 4 games?
Correct. Well, the last 2, but man, again, the comfort factor that he has going from doing some power packages, right? 12 personnel, 22 personnel, in conjunction with doing some 4-5 wide occasionally stuff. It's been a good recipe for Alan Bowman, and that's exactly what he thought he was going to get. He thought he was going to get a little bit of some of the Texas Tech old school stuff that he used to do, but a lot of run heavy, able to kind of, get the workhorses more involved offense. And now that he's getting it, him and Gundy, I give credit's due. They're coming up with their scripting. The last 2 games, the first 20-25 plays have been something we haven't seen for years. And this is an Oklahoma State team that is typically viewed as a pretty high-octane offensive ball club, or at least since 2010, 2011, right?
Right.
Yeah, man, it's a little bit different the way that we're getting it done. But if we can keep this scripting up, this is 2 games in a row where we have just dominated the first quarter, and it's given us the ability to have some questionable second and third quarters.
Interesting.
Yeah, man.
Did they not script plays in the past?
It wasn't Gundy. It was Dunn.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Now Gundy's doing it himself.
From what I've been being told the last 2 games, yeah,
okay.
he finally hit the F it button. He got the dry erase board out. He's actually been the one that's designed everything for special teams the last 2 weeks as well, and we've had 5 blocks.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, Gundy can still coach. Who knew? He just needed to be motivated and kicked in the rear end a couple times, I guess.
He was trying to. It sounds to me like and I hate to get. I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but it sounds to me like he was trying to pull the Bobby Bowden or whatever coaches out there that did this for a really long time, and when they got near the end of their careers, they were able to be CEO types and delegate
Yes.
a lot of that stuff.
Correct.
And that might have been working for a while, but it looks like maybe once he started losing some assistant coaches,
I think
like
it's
that,
more of this transfer market NIL stuff, man. Right?
Too,
Gundy's philosophy has always been go after the 2-star guy that's going to take a few years to build up,
Right.
get him here, redshirt him, body by glass. By his senior year, he'll be a starter, maybe an all-conference kind of guy. You can't do that anymore. I mean, you can't afford to do that anymore.
Yeah, West Virginia's the same way. They're the same type of program because they just never, like we talked earlier, they've not been able to recruit the 5-star kids like everybody else. So they have to rely on making 3-star kids, 4 and 5-star kids by the end of their careers.
100%. Yep.
So, all right, let's switch sides of the ball for a minute. And on the Oklahoma State defense, we all know about Collin Oliver, guy's a stud. Okay.
Right.
But I do want to talk about his transition from being basically a D end to a linebacker. Has that, I mean, it seems to me like it's went really well. Was there a learning curve for him or did he pick it up pretty quick?
Yeah, it wasn't super seamless, but thankfully at Edmond Santa Fe High School in Oklahoma, he did play a considerable amount of linebackers. So from a terminology and understanding what he's trying to do, right, quarters coverage, whether it's going to be halves or whether you're going to be in the flats or you're going to be in man, so on and so forth, that stuff is not going to be too difficult for him. He did shed 7 pounds in the offseason as well to be a little bit more laterally quick. The first couple of games, I really honestly think that we were just too vanilla with him. He didn't do anything, right? He just kind of was hanging back. So, it was kind of confusing. Well, is this transition to linebacker going to work? And then whenever he got to kind of be a little bit more involved in some of the nuanced intricacies of the game planning, you're seeing him come out of a shell. And then against KU, when Brian Nardo didn't know what to do, the last few drives of the fourth quarter, he said, screw it, go back to defensive end, and Collin Oliver wreaked havoc to end the game. So
interesting.
You have to watch what he does at linebacker, but we can still cheat him up and put his hand in the dirt. And if you see his hand in the dirt, he's probably coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching him as a freshman against Oklahoma in I don't know if it was the Big 12 title game or maybe the Bedlam rivalry game, but nonetheless, whichever game it was, he was wreaking absolute havoc in that game. It was a Bedlam game that year. It had to be.
Yeah, it would have been Bedlam 2021 where the winner went to the Big 12 title game.
That was it. But he played he was a beast, man.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, my God, we got to deal with this kid for 3 more years. So yeah, he's a heck of a ball player. He's going to get drafted. There's no doubt about it. Who else on that side of the football should West Virginia fans be on the lookout for?
Kendall Daniels. Kendall Daniels is bound to be a household name at one point in time. All right, there's not very many 6'4", 230-pound linebackers / safeties that can still run a 4.4, 4.5 40.
Yeah.
Kendall Daniels is that guy. So whenever I mentioned earlier that, yes, we do have some deficiencies in the backside, it's because we do mess some things up. But our average corners like 6'1", 6'2", all of our safeties are big dudes that run in that 4.4, 4.5 range. So from an athletic perspective, there's not very many teams that can out-athlete Oklahoma State.
Right.
We're going to get burnt. Yes, we are. We're going to take some chances, and it's going to cost us. Absolutely. But we're also going to be able to force some turnovers and some timely instances in the game as well.
Yeah, you guys do. And you guys sack the quarterback quite often.
Yes. Top 5 in the country and tackles for loss.
If my memory serves me correctly, from studying the numbers. So that's something. West Virginia hasn't given up a lot of sacks. This year, we're one of the top in the conference.
Right.
Least sacks allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But if our offensive line, which let me back up a minute. We didn't give up any sacks last week either, but we were horrific in the run game. But so how's the run defense for Oklahoma State?
Well, we just took the number 6 running team in the United States of America that was averaging 232 yards a game to 90.
That's great.
Yeah. Devin Neal's averaging like 7-point-something yards a carry this season, I believe. And we held him in check, which is partially why we got burnt on play action by the tight end deep a couple times, right? We got our safeties creeping up a little bit. But that was the objective, right? The objective was to completely take away from the run, make Jason Bean beat you with his arm. And, Jason Bean did step up, and he actually stood and delivered quite often, and then used his athleticism when he absolutely had to, which I do think is somewhat comparable to Garrett Greene.
Yeah, it is.
The things
Agreed.
Bean was able to do, mostly all of it was due to his athleticism and buying a little bit more time. There wasn't a lot of traditional, 3-step, 5-step drop in rhythm type of patterns. It was a lot of just, one-on-one mismatches and athletic abilities, which is why Garrett Greene is scary as well.
Yeah. You guys are mostly a man coverage team. Is that correct?
We've done not really. Like, I think we want to be. I just don't think that we have enough faith to be a full man team.
Gotcha.
I do think as the season progresses, by this time next year, we should be. I'll put it to you that way. But Brian Nardo also likes the ability to mix up the 3-man front with the 4-man front and then go from zone to man seamlessly with the same guys on the field. I think that's something that we've been able to see mesh a little bit more as the season has gone on.
Interesting. What about your defensive front? Are they a strength, a weakness? How do you look at them?
Our defensive tackles have been a strength. You talk about 2 guys, and Justin Kirkland, 6'4", 350 pounds. He's the dude that benches literally 700 squats, 850 something.
Wow.
Like the dude's absolutely insane. And then his counterpart, Collin Clay, has actually started last week because he's kind of been doing equally as good. So D tackle, we're good. Defensive end has been a pretty big letdown. In my personal opinion, we've got a redshirt freshman in Deshaun Brown that's shown some flashes, especially athletically. But Nathan Latu has done pretty good. I wouldn't say he's done a lot. Cody Waltersheed, in my personal opinion, hasn't done as much as I maybe thought he would. We got the 4-star transfer, Anthony Goodlow. He's actually been coming on more recently, but our defensive ends haven't done a whole lot. But our defensive tackles, thankfully, have made the A and B gap so nasty, ugly, and muddy. It's allowed Nicholas Martin, Kendall Daniels, and Colin Oliver to get kind of free in the backside.
All right. The one you said that the bench selects. How much did you say he benched?
It's like 650, 700.
And what position? He's a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Does he? What gap is he like a nose? Does he play the nose tackle spot typically?
Yep.
So he's going to be matched up with Zach Frazier.
He eats guards and centers up.
Yeah.
He's a double teamer. You're going to have to double team him.
Well, last week, Zach Frazier played arguably one of the worst games of his career last week against Nwankwo from Houston. Zach Frazier is an All-American center.
Yeah, true.
He had been playing lights out all year. Last week, not so much. His Pro Football Focus grade was in the 40s last week, and he's normally a 70s, at least high 60s guy in Pro Football Focus. He's even had a few games in the 80s.
Wow.
So he did not have a good week. So I'll be interested to see how he bounces back this week. That should be another interesting matchup between your all's nose tackle and Zach Frazier. Repeat his name to me again, Cody.
Justin Kirkland and Colin Clay.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
a matchup I'm going to keep my eye on, because that matchup could dictate how this game goes. I'll just be honest with you. Because if they have to double team him, if Zach's not able to handle him one-on-one, which he normally is able to do,
right?
If he's not able to, it's going to change some things for us. May force us to pass the ball more, which we were able to do last week against Houston in the second half successfully. But I'm not sure if that was because Houston's secondary was that bad. If our passing game had improved that much, maybe a little of both. That's what I think. It's the latter, a little of both. But so that'll be an interesting matchup to see, man, how that trenches battle goes between Kirkland and Frazier. How are you guys at defending the tight end? I know the Kansas game, you take those 2 plays. I know those 2 plays were
no, man,
to a degree.
So bad.
But even with those 2 out of the equation, you've still struggled.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I do not think that there's a team that we've played this year that hasn't had at least one tight end catch a touchdown on us.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
That's good
sometimes Trey Rucker gets caught flat-footed, right? Sometimes Lyric Rawls would get caught lurking and get burnt deep a little bit. Play action killed us against KU, but this has been going back. I guess Iowa State isn't a good example because they always have NFL tight ends, but
right.
if you look in the conference over the years, OU, Cincinnati's actually had quite a few big-time tight ends. KU, K-State. I think West Virginia's actually has some pretty productive guys. Not only do we never use a tight end, but we can never stop one either. Every year, if there's a team with a good tight end, he will beat us up. It is what it is.
Yeah. We've got Cole Taylor, the 6'7" tight end transfer out of LSU, who's been really good for us this year. You could argue he's been our best, most reliable receiver. As far as, game in, game out, he doesn't break a lot of long, 70, 80-yard plays.
Right.
But when you need a play, he's usually the guy that makes it for you. And so that makes me feel a little good about him possibly having a productive week. We talked about your offensive side of the ball already, but I forgot to ask you about the offensive line. How's the offensive line play been the last 3 or 4 weeks?
The last 2 weeks, even from PFF grades, have been all across the board the best in over like 7 years.
Wow.
Is it smoke and mirrors? Is it finding the right combination? Is it the running game getting a little bit better? Is it the scripting working so well that it opens up the passing game? Who knows, right? It's obviously probably equal parts, maybe a little bit of both, right? But the offensive line actually looks pretty good. We were a zone blocking scheme team for a long time. We went away from it after last season because it was a disaster. And if you don't have a Jaylen Warren style of guy, right, it's kind of hard to continuously run that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wanted to be a little bit more beefy, right? A little bit more traditional, 1-hole, 2-hole, 3-hole type of stuff. And we did a lot of that in the summer, did a lot of that in the fall. And now we've kind of gotten back into it. And then this last game against KU, we were actually running zone blocking scheme a decent chunk of the time. We did your traditional, and we also did a split where one side of the line would do zone and the other side would do straight up.
Wow.
So, Charlie Dickey's been a disastrous nightmare of an O-line coach in Stillwater, but everything he ever did at K-State was fighting a phone booth, right? You know what I mean? Very simple. Yeah. KISS method, have your O-linemen get their hands on somebody or get to the second level and drive them into the ground. That's it. No cutesy-tootsie. No trying to help the quarterback hang on to the ball for 5, 6, 7 seconds. None of that. And we're doing some of that, which is maybe what's allowed the versatility to kind of show the running game's capabilities now.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was watching Ollie Gordon the other day, number one, I saw them open some major holes for him, number one. But his ability to make a jump cut is absolutely elite. I mean, he's got a jump cut that is one of the best I've seen. I mean, he's just great at it, man. And if there's a hole there, he makes a jump cut, in that he's there, and he's at the second level before you can blink, and he's just very talented. So I'm really worried about us being able to contain him. Taj Brooks had a good game. Now, we were able to beat Texas Tech, but Taj Brooks did have a good game against us. He ran for over 100 yards, but we made them so one-dimensional that it kind of played into our hands because it bled clock, which is what we wanted to do.
I mean, your defense is no joke, right?
Well, they did. They were last week. They played terrible against Houston, but I'm hoping it was every year. There's always one game the team's going to play down to their opponent at least one time.
Yep.
West Virginia does it every single year, and I said this year they were going to do it at least once, and I had a gut feeling all week last week that they were going to do that again against Houston. And they did, unfortunately. Unfortunately, my gut was right. So now this week, we need to play. Oklahoma State is not an opponent we need to play down to. We need to play equal to or up to, in my opinion, because you guys Oklahoma State's playing really good football right now. And they're more talented than Houston is. Houston's got some talented guys, don't get me wrong. But as far as your whole entire roster top to bottom, Oklahoma State's a much deeper, more talented team top to bottom.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, Houston's got a couple guys they got a few guys that are probably going to play on Sundays in Houston. There's no
Right.
doubt about it.
Skill wise, yeah,
Yep.
Houston's as good as the
They
rest of the Big 12, but
Yep.
it's, the meat and taters section and depth that
they've got one stud offensive lineman at the left tackle spot, and they've got one stud defensive lineman at the nose tackle spot, and then they've got great skill players. That's on the offensive side. That's really it.
Yeah.
And they do have one really good DB, I think, and he's not been playing that well, Fleming. But nonetheless, it's going to be a much tougher test. If West Virginia doesn't bring their A game, and I could say the same for Oklahoma State, both teams are going to have to bring their A game this week if they want a chance to win this game.
We've had to, as much as the scripting has worked, outside of the script, when those first 25, 20 plays are over, we've kicked 10 field goals in the last 2 games. That is something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I did notice. I noticed in the K-State game too. You guys did kicked a lot. You only scored one offensive touchdown in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Plus, you had a pick six.
If not,
5 field goals, right?
Felt like it. Yeah, no, it was mostly all field goals, man. It was ugly.
Yeah.
And no matter what anybody wants to say, right, wrong, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly about Gundy, the frustratingly predictable nature in which he approaches field goals, it's bound to bite us again some point in time this season. Just is.
Yeah. Can you expand on that a little bit of what you mean by that?
Well, just Gundy's always had a propensity to kick field goals at weird times, right? To punt, there's I think me and you have talked about some of the bedlams. Like he'll punt on his side of the field when down by 8 in the fourth quarter. With it's like, what are you doing, man? They're not going to give you an extra 5 minutes, and I know that it goes backwards sometimes, right? That a coach is too aggressive and they go for it too many times on fourth, and then they're chastised because he's too aggressive. And so I get that there's a give and take, but most of the big games that Oklahoma State has lost under Gundy is primarily because of the conservative nature.
Okay.
That Gundy's the most conservative coach when he gets a lead in the conference, and it's always been that way. It has always been that way.
Gotcha. Well, Cody, 2 more questions. One, what's the one matchup as an Oklahoma State fan that you are most fearful of, or what's the one player maybe that on West Virginia has you a little nervous?
Well, what I'm most ready for is I want to see Garrett Greene against our secondary because of what happened this last week, right? KU did a very good job scheme-wise in designing some things up. So clearly, that's where we have some holes, right? So West Virginia would be intelligent to exploit those holes. I would hope that we spend a decent amount of time this week trying to cover up those holes.
Okay.
And if we can do that, Garrett Greene is very athletic, but he's also still pretty young. I think that our speed defensively, if we can confuse him enough and force you guys to do what we want you to do, I think that's the ticket. And here's the deal, man. It's a day game. Thank you, whoever scheduled that one.
Yeah, we prefer night games in Morgantown.
I know, dude. Night games in Morgantown, night games in Ames are 2 of the worst things to do if you're a traveling football team, right? Yeah. I have watched so many late night, crazy Morgantown upsets over the years that I've told you it's number 2 on my bucket list in the country.
Yeah.
And I won't be going to this one, okay? But I kind of don't mind experiencing the crazy of Morgantown. I just hope it doesn't happen this go round, because it's got to be somewhat docile in the daytime, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it docile. But, I don't know I don't think it's a sellout, but I'd say we'll have 50 to 55,000 there. Hopefully more. Hopefully we'll be closer to 60. But our fan base is, we've been known to we are passionate, but we've not been selling out as frequently as we used to. Multiple reasons. Number one, we've not won as consistently. 2, it's an extremely expensive game day experience at West Virginia. Second most expensive in the country, based on some research.
What?
Yes, behind Oklahoma. between ticket prices, they factor in everything: ticket prices, food, travel, the whole hotels, everything. It's the second most expensive game day experience in the in college football in the country.
Wow.
And we're the poor state, or one of the poor states in the country.
Well, I was going to say,
that math don't necessarily add up. But when we're winning, and when we're winning consistently, we typically sell out. But nonetheless, it should still be the fans that will show up will be loud and they'll be excited, and they'll be into the game. One more before we go, I got to ask you. I know we're two homers here, but people may be surprised. I want to get your score prediction.
Oh man,
If you're ready.
I'm not, but here's what I'll say. If we take advantage of the script once again, I'll say Cowboys by 8 to 10. If we cannot get that first 20-25 play script as successful as the last 2 weeks, man, it's gonna be a dogfight that I could see maybe an overtime style of game, and that doesn't fare well in Morgantown.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind here, but based on what research I've done, what I know about you guys, and what I've watched, and what I know about our team, and what happened this past Saturday, and the fact that we still have a couple guys out with injuries. Okay. I'm going to say we are supposed to have our starting left tackle, Wyatt Milam, back this week, so hopefully that'll help.
Yeah.
On that side, but, and hopefully our safety Aubrey Burks, but we're not. He's probably going to be a game time decision. But my prediction is West Virginia's -3.5 according to Vegas, at least based on what I saw. Over-unders are about 49.5, which is probably if they can keep the game in the 20s, that definitely is to our advantage, in my opinion, because that's the style of football we've been playing and been successful at this year. The one game we had that was a shootout didn't go our way, so we like to keep it low scoring.
Okay.
But I'm really concerned about Ollie Gordon and our ability to stop him. And I'm worried that our defense is not maybe as good as they played the first couple of weeks. Our first, our first 3 wins against Power 5 teams, Pitt, TCU, and Texas Tech. I'm a little worried that maybe that was a little bit of a smokescreen.
Okay.
I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah.
But this is a long-winded way of saying I got Oklahoma State by 3 points.
Okay. Like I said, man, if our scripting goes well and you guys have to play catch-up, I feel pretty confident.
Yeah.
If the scripting doesn't go well and it's a dogfight, as we watched last year, that slugfest in the rain while we tried to throw it 70 times, like we played into your strengths to some degree, right? Yeah. And I think as long as we can deviate from that this time, I mean, you're gonna have to stop Ollie, right? It's gonna, but that's the thing is, like, as we just proved last week with KU, if you go for broke, stopping the run, and you do it that successfully, you get a pretty good shot, because Alan Bowman, if he's forced just like Greene, right? If Alan Bowman's in a position where he's got to come back from a few touchdown deficit, there's going to be some picks along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys are not built for comebacks, just like we're not.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I say that. I mean, we obviously last week we did, so maybe I'm wrong. But last week, I'm still trying to figure out if last week was a fluke, or as far as how our passing offense played, or is Houston's defensive secondary just that bad? I don't know yet, because we hadn't been able to throw the ball like that all year. But now they did make some changes schematically, and move some personnel around a little bit to be able to do that. So maybe they found something. I hope, but we'll see. Well, Cody, man, before we get out of here, tell everybody one more time where they can find you and your work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go check out the YouTube show. I always forget to ask, and it's stupid, right? Because it's like dating. You ain't going to get the date unless you ask. But I'm the worst in the world about asking people to do the like and comment, subscribe, share, all that fun jazz. So I'm trying to get better about that. Oh, and a new one. This will show my inability to be technologically advanced. I just found out that I have like ratings on Spotify, Apple, all that. I had no idea. Somebody's like, "Hey man, sent you a 5-star review." I was like, "I didn't even know that was a thing."
Yeah.
And I just looked at my Spotify, and there's some reviews from the lady that was in charge of the show beforehand. So if you like the show, go give me a rating on Spotify and Apple, so I can get that old hosts whatever statistics off of there.
And give him a thumbs up on YouTube as well, and give this show a thumbs up too, guys.
Yeah, you better like Couz's show. This is guys, and I've said it before, so I don't mind saying it again. Couz is one of the reasons, along with Golden Blue Dude, that I even entertained, even exploring to try to do this job.
Oh, thank you, man.
100%, man.
Golden Blue Dude was my inspiration. I got to tell you. And unfortunately, I was able to tell him that before he passed. But
that's awesome.
And he was, he obviously was excited, happy, whatever that I told him that. But
yeah.
Made him
well,
feel
yeah,
good.
dude. The first couple times I watched him, I
gave him his flowers, as they say.
I was like, I'm good at yelling too. I like this Golden Blue, dude.
Yeah. Yep. So, but anyway, Cody, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody go check out his work at Locked On Oklahoma State, at All Day O State on X, Twitter, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Go check it out. He does really good work over there covering Oklahoma State. He puts out a show every single day. So be sure not to miss it. With that being said, guys, please also check out my work. like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff that Cody mentioned earlier. If you're listening to this on podcast platforms, and yes, I do that occasionally, give me a 5-star rating. I would really appreciate it. With that being said, guys, we really appreciate you tuning into the show. And until the next one, Q Country Roads, and have a top shelf day.